Welcome back to the JFP podcast. My name is Keegan. I'm joined with Randy today, and today we have two special guests, Gabe Tupy and RJ Moore from the Tommy Knockers. What's up, guys?
What's
Hey,
up?
Do you guys want to talk about your experiences with the Tommy Knockers real quick and tell us about the Tommy Knockers?
sure. I've joined the Tommy Knockerz, I don't know, at this point, like 4 years ago is when I joined in. And I started playing down at Tommy Guns when I was going to college down in the area in Mankato. And I decided to play in the big game. Tommy Guns hosted a season closer. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And I started getting back into the sport again after finally having some money from college and not feeling totally broke. And went out there and started playing out there. And at first, it was kind of just going to be a pretty plain Jane, normal experience. Like, it was a big game, scenario game kind of deal. And so I wasn't taking it too seriously until I started getting onto the speedball field, and there was a couple players on the other team that I started getting into snap battles with, and I was like, holy moly, okay, this is the most fun I've had because I'm actually playing against somebody that knows what they're doing
Yeah.
on the field and is giving me some competition. And the guy that I was so happened to be snap battling against was one of the players that had been playing there for a long time. His name is Pete. Pete Swartz, I think is his last name. And
Okay.
so he kind of stuck his neck out for me at the end of that and introduced me to Tommy and Jory, and I think Caleb was there too, and kind of introduced me to the core group of guys that were there for Tommy Guns.
Mhm.
Um, and just like, hey, like, you look like you actually know what you're doing. Like, we have a team here, we play every Sunday, like, we'd love you to join. And then from there, the rest was history. Like, I jumped on the team, started playing there every Sunday, and started getting really involved and making friends with there, and really trying to push those guys to be like, hey, like, we have a group of guys, let's go try Annandale. And a lot of those guys were kind of out of playing tournament ball because it's an older group of gentlemen. And we went and played Annandale 3-man, and that kind of kicked off our tournament scene.
Hell yeah.
So, and then I think a year later, I hit up RJ because we had ran into him playing up at Annandale, and we were like, "Hey, we need some ballers, and like, I know you're interested in playing speedball, and like, would love to have you." And me and RJ go back quite a ways. We used to play at my original home field at. It's now been rebranded. It used to be MN Pro Paintball, but now it's Champion Valley out in Lakeville,
Oh,
Minnesota.
nice. How long you guys known each other?
That's a good question. RJ, how
I'd
long did
say
you play?
I'd probably say since I don't know, 2019, 2020.
Yeah, that sounds
Nice.
about right. Now we've
It's
known each
about
other for a
right,
while.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'd say about then, you know, basically how I kind of heard from Tommy Knockers was through Gabe, and it wasn't really necessarily through me. So when I gotten into paintball, it was around that 2019, 2020 time. Me and a couple buddies that we all kind of worked in the same district of, I was running a store at Papa Murphy, and I had an assistant manager that kind of, oh, I know this place, Minnesota Pro Paintball, it's outdoor field, and I hadn't played paint from that day when he had brought that up. I probably played paintball when I was like 13 out in Colorado where I grew up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Blitz Paintball, shout out to them in Colorado. Did a little rec ball out there. It was fun, but it was only one time. And then my buddy Chris, he was like, "Hey, we're doing my wife's birthday party, down in St. Paul. It was the indoor place, and we did a night of that. And then my buddy's like, "Hey, I know this outdoor place. We got kind of into that. And then I met a couple guys up there. They had connects to like Lakeville Ambush, which they're kind of known as Lumberjacks now. And so they kind of introduced me to speedball, and we did one tournament up at Annandale. My very first tournament ever. But before we did that tournament, we actually went out to Tommy Knockerz, Tommy Guns, paintball field. And my buddy, he kind of introduced or brought us out there to go scrimmage against them. And then I was like, oh, what up, Gabe? And it kind of turned into a thing where I had a couple guys that was interested in doing the tournament paintball, but they kind of like, we started doing some practicing. we went and scrimmaged up with Tommy Guns, and we did our first tournament, and we placed fourth place. My very first tournament ever up at Annandale.
Nice.
We were we were Bamboozle was our team name at the time. And then I think we did one or two more 3-man tournaments up there, and then they kind of like fell off. And then so I, from knowing Gabe, I was like, hey man, I had signed up a team. They fell off. Like, do you need an extra player? He's like, yeah, man. Tommy Knockerz, blah blah. I went and joined them, and we placed. I want to say we podium second place that time, right? And then the second line placed third. Well, anyways, but yeah. So like that's how I got kind of introduced with the Tommy Knockerz. So Gabe kind of started off with there, and then he kind of like brought me into the scene, and then they had an airbag field and all that kind of stuff. Like where I was practicing, we didn't have an airbag field. We had a hyperball field set up. So
Hell yeah.
that's how I kind of got introduced with Tommy Guns, and like it was a good group of guys, and Gabe was kind of running the show a little bit. Yeah, and it was a good time.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
It's great playing with you guys. It's great practice. You guys know a lot out on the field, and you guys have helped us out as a team and individual players. You guys are always more than willing to help us out and guide us and invite us out to practices and practice with you guys and figure things out. And playing against you guys has helped me learn a lot, especially different types of play styles. You guys all have very widely different play styles out on the field, and you guys are able to switch it up anytime, anywhere, any position, which is really cool. So would you guys like to kind of go into your guys' play styles and what you do for the team?
Oh, that's a hard one. Because I try to play anywhere that I'm needed. I always like to have the mentality that I should be the most versatile piece in the coach's chess set, right? Like be able to be anywhere and anything that they need at that time. So like for a lot of my paintball career, I was always playing on the Dorito side and playing as like a Dorito back player. And then for this past season, I have actually been playing front snake player instead, but it's definitely jumped from playing a more guns up approach to trying to be more aggressive to going back to guns up. So it's been jumping around a lot while playing.
Yeah, and I mean, I could kind of agree with that too. When I started playing, speedball, I didn't really know like what position I really liked, and I guess, my very first time playing airbag field was back before I did that first tournament with Bamboozle, and we were up at Lake Superior with the Superior guys, and first time ever playing, speedball up there. I was kind of like, hey, I like the Doritos. Like, whatever bunker's bigger, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, once
Yeah.
it came to like the smaller bunkers, I was always like,
Yeah.
like I'm all right. The crawling is a little too much work.
For sure.
Like I used to be an active person. When I was younger, but then I grew up. I was whatever. I won't get into that right now, but anyways, so I guess when I started playing, I was more of the Dorito player, back or front. It didn't really matter to me. But yeah, I would have to agree. This past season, this recent season, gotten into more of the snake, and Gabe is a lot better at it than I am. But like he said, I kind of want to be that kind of person where like I want coach to be, hey, I'm gonna place you over here, or I'm gonna place you over here this time. I kind of want to be that person that can kind of be solid and no matter where they place me.
Right.
And
Be
that's where we
versatile.
kind of try to, versatile, so like we try to, and that's what we kind of do with everybody, what we try to do with everybody, but people, are better in different areas than others and stuff, so, but for me personally, like I like to learn new things, and I'm kind of hard on myself to try to learn those and execute it as best I can.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. It's definitely good to have people on your team that are specifically good at certain things, but it's also really good to have people who can be that versatile player and play any position out on the field. Like I'll never forget the time me and you were in the snake, RJ, and you bunkered me, but you shot my teammate out shooting over my head because we didn't see each other for a fat second, and then you just looked down and shot me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
that was
That
a
was a good day.
surprise. I think it was more of a surprise for me than you.
I was
But
on the
yeah.
sideline watching. I couldn't believe Randy couldn't notice or hear him shooting his gun right above him. I was like, Randy, I wanted to say something, but you're on the sideline and you're like, you can't say anything.
Just not
But-
paying attention. Tunnel vision out there.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Yeah,
a
that-
deadly combination. I think it's a very deadly combination that both of you guys are very capable snake players, and it makes it less predictable on what you guys are going to be doing, because it could be RJ going in the snake for a point, and then Gabe is going to the snake in a different point, and they're switching it up. They're doing different things. It makes it less predictable, and it's harder to play against you guys because you've got that versatility. And I really got to commend you guys on that, because it's not easy chalking up plays to take on you guys, because we don't know who's going to go where.
Right.
Other teams usually they have their dedicated snake, they have their dedicated Dorito guy, they have their dedicated home. But with you guys, you got to throw a dart at something and hope it sticks. That's
Right.
just crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. And I think that's a huge goal for me and RJ, is to be that versatile player that can play in any position, but also teach other players to be versatile like that, because it helps you have a better understanding of the game and what, if I'm playing this bunker, what does the other side of the field see? If I'm playing this bunker, what does the other side of the field see? Okay, if I'm here, what situation have I put myself in so that I can either move forward and advance the game, or retreat back so that I can have a better advantage against my opponent.
Right.
Agreed.
We'll take a little step backwards, and I want to ask about your guys' first time playing paintball, and what was your first marker, like the marker that you first bought?
So that's funny. So my very first experience, I've been in paintball now for, I think, 16 or 17 years now. I started playing paintball, I think, when I was 11, and my first paintball experience, it was 11 or 10. I think it was 11. And it was definitely 11 because it was for 4th of July. My dad had met up with some family friends, and they had the bright idea, hey, let's go shoot each other with paintballs for 4th of July. And so
Hey, that's the best way.
right, exactly. So they set up a reservation or whatever beforehand, and my dad brought me along, and he told me, he's like, okay, you're supposed to be 12. You're gonna say that you're 12, and you can't cry. Don't bitch. Excuse my language. Don't cry. Right.
You good.
So I was like, okay, Dad, I can do that. And so the very first paintball, it was me and my dad and a bunch of family friends, and one of the family friends was like a retired cop.
Ooh.
And so he was using all his cop tactics that he'd learned in his boot camp or whatever for being a cop, and was just being a total dork and hiding in the corner and waiting for everybody to come to him. And I remember just being so nervous, because this is back when it was not Champion Valley, it was Minnesota Pro Paintball, and they had a field called El Barrio. And El
Ooh.
Barrio actually got removed and turned into what's now Field X. It's all those wooden
Mhm.
crates on that field. And before, it was set up as an old Western town. And so I remember running through the crates and looking around corners, and it was a great time. So ever since that day, I was hooked. And I was a big first person shooter kid and playing a lot of Call of Duty. So right away, that was my connection of, oh, I get to play my video game in real life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what initially got me hooked into it. And then I just stuck with it. And I had a buddy, he's a good friend of mine. His name's Gus Felstead.
Mhm.
And me and him were high school friends and grew up together. And so we kind of rolled each other off. And his brother was big into paintball. And so he was kind of another in to keep with paintball. And when I was getting into it, it was a good time to get into paintball.
Mhm.
It was back when there was open play was 200 plus people every weekend. And so there was a lot of kids around my age, and I just stuck with it.
Hell yeah.
And that leads into my first ever gun. So should I say my first ever marker or my first ever electric marker?
Both.
Okay, so my first ever marker, it was Gus's marker that I think he got from his brother, and it was a blue WGP mechanical blowback gun. Didn't have any batteries or anything like that. It had a double trigger. Think of it like the Spider Victor or the
Azodin.
HK Army. Yeah, like the Azodin, right? Fully mechanical, doesn't have any batteries in it. It had the double trigger tube stack. It was in a nice. It was such a pretty blue.
Hell yeah.
I bought that off of him for $40. That thing was the worst gun I've ever owned. Absolutely awful.
But it was
Chopped
blue.
paint Oh, dude, but it was blue. It was so cool. It chopped paint like no tomorrow. I couldn't get it to feed for anything. I could shoot maybe 2 pods
Damn.
and a hopper. It was awful. So I quickly was like, okay, I can't keep playing with this. I gotta upgrade. I gotta get past this. And so I think for Christmas, for 2 Christmases, I saved up a bunch of money and I bought my first ever electronic gun. And the gun I bought was a Proto Rail 2011.
Oh.
And that thing was not good. It was not good at all.
Yikes.
The new die CZRs are significantly better than what I had as my first marker. That first marker, I bought it and it didn't even work out of the box. I had to give it back to MM Pro Paintball to have them send it off to die to get it fixed.
Damn.
And then when they finally fixed it, I just bought the gun and it took 4 weeks to get it back because it was shipped all the way to California and then all the way back. And that thing was a battery hog. I'd have to change the battery every month or every 2 months. And it was an air hog too. I probably got 4 pods out of it every time I play with it.
Yikes.
Jeez.
So it was not a great marker, but it was $300 and it got me into playing speedball, and I played my first tournament with that gun. And maybe if I can look in the archives, I can try to find a picture of me playing with it.
That'd be
I think
awesome.
16 or 15, and it was the first tournament I ever first or second tournament I ever played that I have the picture from. I think it was my first.
That's
And that's
awesome.
got a fun story behind it as well. Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
first time playing paintball and my first 2 guns I ever owned. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about it because it kind of badmouths a team, but that first tournament, dude, we played against, I think is what it was, because that was back when they had their jerseys before they switched to. But what happened is I was the last alive in Dorito, and they did an airstrike where they send one player on the right side of the bunker and another player on the left side of the bunker to come and bunker.
Yeah.
And they were all like the old days of paintball. They were all about getting in the head game, even if you were brand new. It was our first tournament, right? And it was all about getting in that head game. And so they were head hunting. And so when I got bunkered, I literally had 2 guns on both sides, both aiming at my ears and stitching me down from my ears all the way down to my hip.
Ooh.
Yeah, my ear was ringing. That sucked. That one hurt. And not even the player that did it came and apologized to me. His cousin came up to me and apologized for what his cousin had done.
Damn.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I did not back when I first started playing, they were not great people.
Yeah, we're putting that
They
in.
were a bunch of kids that were just not, they were just a bunch of punks trying to say that they were cooler than everybody else. And I don't want to be that. I don't want that for paintball. It's not a good atmosphere for paintball.
Yeah, we're gonna stitch it together of you saying, and then there are a bunch of punks, and that'll be the intro for the
They're a bunch of punks. So yeah, it's hard to say that because this isn't a bad guy. He's the guy that owns it, right? I've talked to him. The funniest connection with that is that he actually used to play paintball with my cousins, in my cousins' backyards.
Mhm.
So paintball has been in my family more than I thought I knew.
Hold on, you're sharing too much.
Yeah, hold on. Hold that thought.
Yeah,
We'll get
hold
to
that thought.
RJ.
We'll get to RJ and then say this shit, dude. I don't know if you heard RJ, but if you got a story to share it, dude. Don't feel afraid to hold it back. Obviously, we don't want to badmouth people, but if it's
No.
part of the story, fuck 'em. No, I'm just playing.
No, 8, 9 years old. I hung out with this kid. His name was Drew. And he was kind of like the bad influence kid that I grew up with a little bit for a couple of years. His parents were straightforward, but he was just like, I know this group of older kids that I hang out with. And I just remember me and him walked up the street to this house, and he was like, hey, man, they know we're coming, but he hasn't been responding to me, blah, blah. I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know, man. They got paintball guns. And they did this to me last week. They just popped up, started shoot me, blah blah. And I was like, oh great. I don't even know what paintball gun is, but all right. And so we came to this kid's house, walked through the front door, and all of a sudden me and him start getting lit up. Boom, 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 in the house.
Damn.
Start getting shot by paintballs, you know. But anyways, so I got shot by a paintball gun before I even shot one.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, back
Dang.
in that's my Colorado days. I grew up in Colorado, most of my life. And Blitz paintball, that was my very first time ever playing paintball. It was with the basic rental that most companies have, the Tippmann 98, like I loved it, but I never really was like, hey, mom and dad, I want to do paintball, so it kind of was just on the back burner until I moved out here to Minnesota and we did that birthday party with my friend and his wife. And, we're down in St. Paul. I want to say Splat Ball. Had the electric gun with it wasn't the 68, it was the 50, right? If I'm not mistaken, the 50 cal, smaller paintballs.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And then I was playing with that and then I was like, oh man, this is fun. Ever since then, like I was funny story. So I was running a Papa Murphy's in Plymouth. My assistant manager, he came with us that night, and my buddy Chris, he ran a different Papa Murphy's store in Golden Valley. And ever since that night, my assistant manager Dalton, he was like, hey, I know this place outdoors, Minnesota Pro. Let's go try it out. So what we would do is on Friday, me and him would come in extra early and we'd over prep. So that way on Saturday, me and him could go play paintball and we'd set up my store. I had my, shift managers and all that kind of stuff, like kind of run the show while we was gone. And my buddy Chris did the same thing at his store. He would set up his store to where his assistant manager and shift managers could run the store without us, and we just go play paintball.
Hell yeah.
And then we did that for a good few months, and I was like, I just got addicted to it, man. I went on Amazon and bought my first marker. It was a set, you know what I mean? So it was the Zoden, right? It was the mechanical with the double trigger. It came with pop pack, pods, mask, all the goodies and whistles, you know what I mean? And
Right.
I had bought some dye pants. I don't even, they were baggy as fuck. Like I bought some camouflage scarf and all this shit because I used to be scared to get shot, right? And so I'd try to be protected. And I just gotten into it, and then they kind of fell off playing, and I was like, what the fuck, blah blah. And I ended up moving jobs, and then I went out there one day by myself, and I had my buddy Dalton had bought a mini Empire Mini, right? And he sold it to me.
What color?
And it was black.
Hell yeah.
It was black. He had bought it from someone on Craigslist for, I want to say, $120.
Yeah, that was my first marker too.
And he was like, dude, this thing could go auto, right? So I showed up with the mini, shot that, and then we were at Concrete at Minnesota Pro. It was a field, you could kind of imagine, it was like concrete slabs on a hill and all sorts of things, right? And it was me. I was the last person alive on my team, and there was two other people on the other team, and we was just battling each other on this hill. We were running around, missing each other. I was keeping them honest. It was keeping me honest, and then we all ran out of paint before the time in it. And they were like, hey, after the point, we were like, hey, that was a good point. And that's how I got kind of introduced to the Lumberjacks. Shout out to Bill. He kind of runs that thing. I met Scott, Dane, Collier. They was kind of like a group that, show up out there. They had jerseys. They had all the fancy guns. And I was like, damn, I want those, and that's when I got set up with my first setup. So Bill, I don't want to speak too much on him, but he likes to buy things and sell them. Right, so he'll play with it for a little bit. He's like, I want the next new thing, and he always had extra gear to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought a tank, a mask, and a gun. I want to say it was the Ego 3.5. It was blue and silver, my first electric gun, and that was my baby for a while. And that's how I got kind of introduced to paintball. I was playing with them, and like I said, there's a guy, Alex Fonte. He was like, hey, you guys want to try speedball? And me, Dane, and shout out to my boy Kit. We were like, yeah. And same with Scott too. So us four, we show up to practice every Sunday, 6 a.m. at Minnesota Pro, and we just practiced, did our first tournament from there at Annandale, and that's how I got kind of introduced. And to put it out there too, one of those tournaments that we played, I got lit up from the top of the head down to the ear from Caleb from Tommy Knockerz before I even kind of knew what Tommy Knockerz was.
Hell yeah, go
So
Caleb.
Ugh,
yeah, so
it
you know,
runs deep, man. That
Yeah.
tactic runs deep.
I
That
was
was
in a
paintball.
Dorito. I was in a Dorito, and you know, like the one thing that I learned from Alex, you know, he was like, "You got to put your dick in that bunker, right? You got to stay protected." And that's what I did. My whole entire fucking legs was under the Dorito. I was like up against, like, my right arm wasn't even touching the gun. And I was shooting in the center, like I was just like flat up against the bunker, and all of a sudden I just felt bah, 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 down my fucking head to my neck, point blank, and I was from Caleb.
Hell yeah.
And
Dang.
yeah, and it was funny because after that point, he walked up. He's like, "Hey, I own a brewery. Here's a beer."
That's
At least he was.
awesome.
At least he was awesome about
Yeah,
it.
That's so
dude,
cool.
you know, so like, and from there, I was just like, "Fuck, dude! Like, okay, this is what, you know, kind of aggressive kind of means, you know." And that's what I kind of learned from Tommy Knockerz, and that's what kind of drew me into more of it. And then I was blessed on being that extra person, the fourth guy. I hit up Tupy. I was like, "Hey, dude, I had two guys. We had a line set up. I had to cut it down because they couldn't make it. Do you need an extra person?" He was like, "Yeah." And ever since then, I've been rolling with the waves with Tommy Knockerz.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the coolest part about you joining that was the tournament that we got second place and the third place. I'm
Yes,
pretty
sir.
sure.
Yeah, first
So-
time podium. I think that was like our fourth tournament ever. And we just flowed. You know, I actually showed up to that tournament pissed as fuck because I woke up late and I was like, "Damn, I got an hour and a half drive. I'm hungover as fuck." Like I went and partied and got a speeding ticket on the way up there.
No.
Yeah, that was funny. I remember
Yeah,
that.
and I showed up. It was kind of last minute, and I was like, "Man, my bad, dude. I got pulled over, this and that." And I just went out there and I just played, man, and it was a good experience, and it was awesome. And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna jump on with you, Gabe." So, thank you for bringing me onto this journey where we're at
Yeah,
now.
thanks for joining, man. It's been a blast playing paintball with all you guys,
Always.
especially with the JFP guys. It's been a really good time. We've had a lot of really great practice with you guys.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, no, I mean it just comes back down to your guys' motto, right? Like I'm a strong believer in your guys' motto of just fucking play. Like
Yeah.
we're all here to have fun. It's how we get better. Let's just play. If that means that, you know, hey, you guys need guys to play, then you guys need guys to play, and we'll send some guys down. And that's the other way around.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like the last SEPs that we went to, man. That was so much fun playing. When we weren't playing, we were just hanging out as homies, man. It was so much fun the whole time.
Always. It's always been a good pleasure. 100%.
So what markers are you guys rocking nowadays?
So right now, it was my first ever second ever brand new marker that I've ever bought, which is my CS2 Pro. That's kind of been my mainstay shooter right now. And I've been contemplating over this off season if I'm wanting to get rid of it. I love that gun. It's just such a workhorse. Has not let me down ever. It shoots lasers. It's quiet. It's ergonomic, and it's just efficient enough, and it's just super reliable. You know, I'm a little bit of a Planet Eclipse fanboy in the sense that, like, I always think Planet is just the Tipman of high-end markers. I can throw it in a gear bag, I can beat that thing up, and I know that I will take it out and it will work. And I'm not worried about it. So, you know, a bunch of our teammates can definitely make fun of me for how lazily I can get on cleaning my gear and keeping my gear clean. But that just proves, you know, the reliability of Planet and how much I love their stuff. So, but yeah, so that would be the gun that I'm shooting, and I'm rocking a Spire 4, sorry. And then I'm rocking a 16-inch Stella barrel from Inception Designs that takes freak inserts. Love that barrel. That barrel's awesome. And then I'm rocking a Ninja SL 277 as my tank.
Nice.
Hell
So
yeah.
Yeah. I'm currently rocking the CS3. I've been in a battle. So my very first high-end marker I've ever bought brand new was a 170R. I've owned 3 of those. Back and forth, different, you know, like the first one I bought, I think it was the camo one, it was darker brown camo. And then I had traded it for something, and then I had bought a CS1 loved that gun, and then I was like, damn, I want the 170R again. So I went and traded that plus some cash for a black and red one. I had bought an HK barrel set, the red and black, so and then I got rid of that plus some cash, and then I had bought the LV2. LV2, I'm gonna tell you, I am planning on purchasing another LV2 to have as like a backup gun.
Really?
And yeah, like the LV2, man, when I had bought, that was my second brand new gun I've ever bought. It was the Iron Man theme, so it was red and gold. And that thing, man, if you want to lay a lane, that was your best friend. You know what I mean? So like that thing could rope. I love that gun. I straight up, like I was like, fuck, I really love it. And I also owned a Lex Ice. I really like that gun too. But I had traded both of those for the CS3 that I got, which I absolutely love. The one thing I didn't like about the LV2 is how bulky it was as trying to be a front player. So like trying to be a snake, it's kind of a bulky gun. If you want to shoot a rope or shoot a lane or hold a lane, that's the gun I personally recommend. But that's just my personal opinion, which is why I'm deciding I'm gonna probably buy another LV2 just to have, if I'm a front player, I'll probably use my CS3 because I love that thing. And then if I'm ever a back player just laning, I'll probably grab my LV2. So personally, yeah, those are my go-tos. And I got the Spire 5 I recently just got, and then I got the 77 Ninja tank on that thing. So
There you go, man. Now I know what to look out for when I see you going out on the field. I know where you're playing.
I'm infatuated with your design of your CS3. Do you want to talk to us about the design on your CS3?
Yeah. So, kind of, I got my respect for military. My brother, I should probably start with my grandpa. My grandpa served in the Navy. He was honorably discharged from the Navy back at his time, and that was kind of like me and my older brothers, like kind of looked up to him. And then my older brother had joined the National Guard, Minnesota National Guard, Red Bull, and he went to Afghanistan and all that kind of stuff. So we got like military influence
It's awesome.
in the family, what I'm saying. And so Bill I talked to about he kind of runs the Lumberjacks. He's the veteran himself. I want to say he was Air Force, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but he's the one that I got the gun from because he had gotten the LV2 Palmia. So we got the Palmia design on there. And he had the CS3, and then that's who I traded my two guns for the Palmia because to me personally it means a lot, right?
Sure.
I've always wanted to join the military, but life kind of takes tolls of different directions, and I will always respect military people, so on and so forth. So Palmia is kind of a big thing in my family, veterans and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Hell
I
yeah.
got the Palmia CS3, and honestly, the LV2 that I might be grabbing, is his sister LV2 Palmia gun. So I might eventually have that in my my army soon too.
That'd be awesome.
That would be thick.
Yeah, I'm really excited. My wife is not really excited, but I got to make smart choices on that kind of decision. But that is my goal, because I mean the LV2 was probably the best gun I've ever shot. CS3, has always been a smooth shot for me. Playing the Eclipse. I mean, I started off, with the Ego and I had an E-Tech 3 at some point that was all ghetto, but it still shot. I mean, you could hear me halfway across the country shooting that thing. I've always owned the Planet Eclipse, and that's just kind of what I stuck with.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
How does the weather affect how you guys play?
I mean, I think this has been stated before, but it definitely sucks to have half of the season just gone,
Yeah.
right? And you would think that being Minnesota, we would have indoor fields or more options for indoor fields. And we did, at one point, we did have two options for indoor fields, but now we're only stuck with the one option. And it's not a terrible option, but I definitely don't think it's feasible option for myself and I don't know, maybe even RJ as well. And a lot of the Tommy Knockerz guys that live even farther south than we do of the Twin Cities area.
Right.
Because it's in the northern part of Minneapolis. It's just too far. And then the hours don't fit in the winter. And so that really does hamper on our time, like with the weather wise. Otherwise, towards the beginning and towards the end of the season, you'll definitely notice it with the guns in particular. Planet has a fancy term for it called stiction, essentially just meaning that the air is too cold, and so the spool valve can't fully cycle properly. So that I've never really run into that unless I'm playing in like November or like in the snow.
Right.
But then it's got to be really, really cold. I say that, hey, there's stiction, but like you really gotta force it at this point. Like, and I don't think I've ever really experienced stiction unless I was like really trying to do it, right? And I was playing in snow and I was dipping my gun and being like just letting it be out in the cold for super long periods of time, and not using it. But even then, okay, I just slot new batteries in and the section's gone. Like that is the beauty of the design. And I mean, that gets into a more technical side of like paintball markers and paintball design, but just based on how the CS2 and the Gamma Core is designed, I think it makes it really nice for cold weather.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And me personally, I've never really played paintball in the winter. The only time I really played paintball in the winter was indoor down at, in the Twin Cities. And to me, like I feel like I don't really get the real experience of a practice or organized practice or scrimmage. Yeah, you could go down there, you get some guys that go down there, you could play for a couple hours, you know what I mean? But like for me personally, it's never really been a thing. And then all the outdoor fields, they typically shut down.
Mhm.
So I've never really, like, if there was an outdoor field that was kind of up, like if Tommy did, and hey, I keep my stuff up all winter or whatever, or you guys could practice during the winter time, I'd probably be down to do it. And that's just me personally, just because I work it out in the winter, all elements. So the elements doesn't really bother me.
Right.
But the experience of playing in the wintertime, or like I've had plenty of times playing in the rain, and I think all of us could agree that we've been in a rainy situation during tournaments or practice.
Yeah.
But during the wintertime, Minnesota doesn't really have that many options that would be beneficial for a legit practice that we normally have during the summer or spring or fall, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't think the weather would stop me. I mean, I typically, in my backyard, I'll do some things during the winter time because, you get that itch where it's like, oh, let me just shoot a hopper in the snow. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or, and I have a good friend of mine. She was an old manager and became a close family friend. Her little nephew, he's got autism and he just gotten into welding and he's been doing really good. So I hit her up probably about a month ago, and I was like, hey, you think he could weld me up a couple targets, metal targets,
Hell yeah.
typically what like we would have at Tommy Guns or at Annandale or whatever. I don't know if there's metal or what I mean.
Yeah.
And he welded me up a couple targets, and I think that's what I'm gonna do during the wintertime, just in my garage, in my backyard, just practice snapping, stuff like that. I try not to let the winter kind of hold me back. There's always things that we could do inside the home too, not necessarily shooting people, but you could sit on the couch, practice your handling, stuff like that. So I try not to let the winter kind of hold me back on a lot of stuff.
For sure.
That's
Yeah.
kind of like where I'm at with that.
I do want to add another point, and I don't know if this has been discussed too, but definitely one that I think we forget a lot about is the humidity, like how humid Minnesota winters really are, or if summers are. Minnesota summers are quite humid, and so that does affect the paint quality, especially when we're playing tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of our tournament ball, even though it's tournament ball and it does break nicer than the field ball that a lot of fields use on their open play, and I know I've practiced with a lot, it's still quite bouncy because of the humidity.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple times too, where paint sticks, because of that humidity.
Yeah. I mean, the paint changes throughout the entire day. It usually starts off pretty chilly. Sometimes there's frost on the ground in the mornings. And then, 3-4 hours into the day, it's so humid outside, you're having to sit under the shade and chug water if possible just to stay in the game.
Yep.
Minnesota's got really cold winters and then really humid, hot summers. It's really weird.
Yeah.
How we're just it's not consistent.
Yeah, I always joke that Minnesota can never make its mind up with what weather it wants. Especially in the summer, there's some days that like it's blistering hot, and other days you're like, why is it so cold all of a sudden? It's the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, spring comes around and it's like, oh, sweet, it's about to be spring. And then the next day it's a blizzard. Just
Yep.
what's going on? So,
This winter has been kind of interesting because the last 2 years has been like, here's a little
Yeah.
something. Yeah, here's a little something. But now it's like, man,
getting
I'm giving
dumped
you
on.
the whole thing. Like,
Yeah, we're getting
I don't
dumped
care.
on.
Ice, cold, warm, melt, ice, cold, snow.
yeah,
it's
all built
it's
up from the
crazy.
last few years.
yeah,
It's giving me
and
more of a reason to get a snowmobile.
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
100%. But like for me personally, I think there's more avenues of what we could do to maintain our practice or fundamentals and stuff that we could do during the winter time
Yeah,
while all this bullshit happens, right?
yeah. I feel
Um,
like it's a money issue at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, who wants to travel to out of state to go practice? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, I think that's
realistically,
the next. I think that's the next like closest indoor field is Siege Paintball out in Wisconsin, and that's on the other side of Wisconsin, other than Splat Ball, or is it Splat Tag up
Right.
in
Yeah.
or is it Splat Ball? I think it's Splat Ball.
I mean,
it's
splat
football.
tag. I mean, they do winter time stuff too, but that's kind of outdoor, But splat ball in Twin Cities, yes. Which typically they're on a strict schedule and a strict BPS.
Yeah. With all that said, what keeps you guys coming back to the field?
Me personally, I would have to say brotherhood, man. It keeps me going. The good times that we got, the hard times that we got, like with the guys that we go to practice with. We have good practices, we have tough practices, and then we have good tournaments, okay tournaments, bad tournaments, and like for me, I feel like it's a good feeling to look forward to during the wintertime. You can kind of have time to reflect. You can kind of have time to sit there and think like, what can I do better? What do I need to work on?
Right.
And at least personally for me, like I look forward to that connection, that brotherhood, that because we all love paintball, right? We all love the fact that we could shoot people, and it's strategy. We're learning some things, but I think the number one important thing that I try to keep attention to is the brotherhood. Like yeah, through the tough times and the hard times, and that's how you can kind of know who's you have a good team. Like we go through thick and thin. We lose together, we win together, and we die together. You know what I mean? And that kind of brings me back to keeps me coming back. Is the big thing is the brotherhood, and also like we all love the sport. The sport's good. You learn skills, keeps you on your toes. You always have that thing in the back of your mind, like, hey, I need to go run today, or I need to go walk. I need to get some exercise, especially during the wintertime, it's like, it's hard to go outside, but it's like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna walk my dog for 2 hours this time, or whatever keeps you active, just so that that you could come back in the summertime and be, hey, you know what? Once we come back to that field, we're back to that brotherhood.
Right. No, I said it before in the first podcast, man. It is the community that we have in paintball, like just throughout the entire country, man. It's insane. Everybody is just so helpful, so willing, and so loving. It's amazing.
Yeah, so at least for me personally, that's what keeps me bringing back. Even if like, I mean, every team has their downfalls. Every team has, I mean, we all have different lives, right? The one thing that we all have in common is paintball. We all love paintball, but also you got to, what I think is we all realize that we all have lives outside of paintball. Once every person respects that, you're going to have good years and bad years, or good seasons, bad seasons. You know what I mean? But it's really important to try to keep that brotherhood going. And I think that's what keeps me bringing back. That's why like Tommy Knockerz has always been my number one. We have our downfalls. We also have our good seasons and bad seasons. You know what I mean? So me personally, that's what brings me back to the field every time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that community is quite important. But I don't know if that's my major driving factor. I think that for me personally, there's just no other sport like paintball. Everything else that I've done, like there's just nothing quite compares. Nothing that gets me thinking about the game in a different way, that gets me actively thinking and playing in that sort of way, right? Like basketball has its people that enjoy it. Hockey has their people that they enjoy it, and like those traditional sports as well as even extreme sports have their own ways of doing it. But there's just something about paintball and how the game, what paintball is and how you play it, that just
Mhm.
always drives me back. I'm always just ready to I'm ready to go play some points. Like, I want to see how I can get better at this sport and I can keep playing better. But I can't understate how important the community part is as well, because that is another driving factor in being able to like spread the word and spread the joy of what paintball means to me to other people. And hopefully that people can also see the beauty of like what makes this sport so unique and so interesting from all aspects, right? From the speedball to the scenario player to the recreational player, all of that, like what makes paintball. And I'm trying to do that even right now, with my youngest brother. He just started playing this year, and so I'm like really hoping to get him into it, show him the ropes, show him why, like the coolest parts of paintball, the community, the sport itself, the camaraderie that you get from being on a team and being with other like-minded people, trying to work together to accomplish a goal, and the feeling of competition, being competitive. Paintball definitely is like a very good outlet to release my competitive edge, like my competitiveness.
For sure. What other sports do the professionals of the sport travel the country to do their own clinics and teach people and help them and just show how it is to play paintball for smaller community? I think that's an amazing thing that these
Yeah,
pros are just
I mean,
traveling the country and doing stuff like that.
and even if they're not traveling to different fields, like a lot of the pro players that have been in the game for a long time, they'll post, like Ryan Greenspan, they got the whole clinic of I think it's called BFI, or is that correct?
Yeah,
He's
I
got
think that's
he's
good.
got a program, right? And you don't necessarily have to do a clinic to learn. He's got like courses and stuff like that. Like I know I grew up playing football. I played football. I played hockey. I played soccer for a long time. I've always been a competitive person, but I could kind of agree with Gabe. Paintball is a different level, man. I mean, you're literally shooting a gun and you got to live. You know what I mean? And it's like up to the individual person to hold up on their end and their skill level. It's not it's a team effort, but at the same time, like it's kind of like you have to make the right decision
Right.
to make sure that your team is on the same level. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like I agree with Gabe on that, is the competitiveness, and like you have to use your brain and you have to be physically and mentally, like I was a competitive football, high school football for 3 years. Like it was very physically and mentally thing, right? But like I feel like the brotherhood wasn't really a thing. Like we're all a team. I was on a high school team, and they all mess around, and they weren't really, they would all talk crap to each other and doubted each other, and like we never succeeded, right? And
Mhm.
that's kind of like where the brotherhood part comes for me, is like paintball. Like you have to have that brotherhood, you have to have that trust, or else you're not gonna. It's just gonna crumble. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, yeah, like the competitiveness. I feel like the clinics are really good. I've never personally been to a clinic, but not saying that I would never join one. You know what I mean? So I think paintball is growing, and it's really up to us, local teams and local states, to keep that going.
For sure. With that said,
Funny.
And yeah,
I was gonna say, funny story. I did a Ryan Greenspan clinic, I think 2 years ago, when I was getting back into paintball, and I wanted to go to Ryan Greenspan clinic at Annandale. And it was the beginning of the day. I bought the thing for 2 days. It was a 2-day clinic. I paid for
yeah,
both days, and then like within like the first half hour, we did our warm up and whatnot. And then we were just doing like a simple like 2-on-2 like off the break like drill, and I got shot in the mouth. And then for that event, for that camp, we were using the Dynasty banana ball, and I got the banana ball in my mouth, and I immediately was about to throw up. And that's
oh,
why I threw up all over my stuff. I
dang.
yeah.
was fucking embarrassed. Left the field, didn't even come back the second day, and I was like, I'll just take my L. And so I
Oh
literally threw up
no.
all over my stuff, and I was like, oh no. And
Oh,
Ryan came over to me. He's like, And the one thing I think it was really funny. He came over to me. He's like, "It's all clear." Like at my throw up, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't like. It's not like yeah, I'm a big guy, but it's not like I'm fucking throwing up because I can't handle this food." But it's just like he was like, "Yeah, it's all clear. It's all. You're good. You're good." And I was like, "No, I'm not."
No.
All my
That's
shit.
because it's called a banana ball.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah.
will never shoot banana ball ever again. I'll never get shot by it ever again. So
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
What do you guys think we could do as a Midwest community to help grow the sport, bring more players in, even just, weekend warriors?
I have been trying to do this for a long time. I always recommend, like, if you are a regular at the field and you see a group of players playing, like rental players playing, and they see you playing, offer to let them use your gun for a game. Like, offer to let them use your equipment. Show them that there is other, like, there's more than just, hey, a group of buddies go and shoot each other in the woods.
Yeah.
Show that there is a competitive scene and that there is a way to progress. Like, like, look at this gun. This gun is sweet. Like, see what you can get. And then always just show up with a smile and be informative and kind. Like, kill them with kindness, right? Like, be the influence that when you started playing would keep you playing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's
The
what
other
kept me
point I would
coming
have,
back.
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I would have to agree with Gabe. And we've done it numerous times. There is one point that we had a group of young guys. We actually called them Young Guns. They were kind of our young guns for the Tommy Knockers. Paintball could be an aggressive sport, but if you could show people how fun it is and what the brotherhood means, the aggressive part kind of comes with it. You know what I mean? And you kind of have to ingrain that into each person. And, that's how you can kind of weed out, hey, is this for me or not for me? But just the fact of, someone coming in as a open player, and they go to a field and they see a team practicing shooting the electric guns, yelling, screaming, shooting each other real close, stuff like that. A lot of people to the eye could be like, oh man, like my gun don't do that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so, and I think that's a good way to grow it too. Let them use their equipment, give them tips, like be out on the field, be engaged with them, be like, hey, this is what you could have done. Just kind of keep something in the back of your mind, kind of show them like, hey, this could be a aggressive sport, but at the same time, like you could have fun. And I feel like the community, Midwest community needs to do more of that. Yeah, I mean, 100%, like just try to get people in and showing them the ropes, like, hey, you just shot that Titman and you were blanking, you know what I mean? Like, you're not really shooting that far, but hey, try this gun out, and they look at it like, oh my God, this is an expensive gun,
Yeah.
and they let that thing rope and they're like, oh, you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times that brings people in.
Yeah.
Me personally, that's what brought me in. It just came at a later age. And I think that's a good way, and then just showing the love for each person, like we're all different teams, but at the same time, we all love the sport, right? We all have the same image, the same mission, we're, we're all good on the off the field, but then once on the field, that's when the competition comes in, but we all respect each other. And
Yeah.
there's always going to be those teams where they're like, I don't care about nobody else, which is fine, whatever. But if you want to grow the sport, me personally, I think that's the best way to go about it.
Right. I agree. You got to be a community together, team versus team on the field. It's all out war. You're out for blood, but off the field, man, we're a community.
yeah, I think that's a really key point because as much as, right, like I'm an advocate for like show off the gear, show off what we have. Not all players are like that. Not all players want that kind of gear. They might want the scenario ball. They might want the mag fed. They might want, just to play with their friends in the backyard. But what keeps them coming is like RJ said, it's the community, it's the brotherhood, it's the teamwork, it's the camaraderie. So being a person on the field that is a role model and plays honest and plays fair and talks with everybody and tries to really build that community, that's how we grow the sport. So I think that's going to
100%.
be what it is.
Gabe,
100%.
you mentioned a while back saying there used to be a time when Champion Valley, which used to be known as MN Pro Paintball, used to have around 200 people for open play. Now you go to most fields and you barely can get a group of 10 guys together. And the question for both of you, what do you think has changed since those days compared to today?
Ooh, with that one, I think a multitude of factors go into that change, and paintball is a very niche sport. There's just no denying that, and it's not necessarily for everybody. And back in those days when it was 200 people, it was a lot cheaper, right? The people had more disposable income to go do those things, and the community was still not. It wasn't trying to be cliquey. It was very accepting, very exciting, and people just the gap of skill hadn't developed in that area. So with the history behind the Champion Valley and how I think they lost a lot of that, as they removed the case discount, and I think a lot of people got hit financially hard because it was closer to the recession right around there, 2008, and so people just didn't have any money anymore, and people grow up as well and don't necessarily want to get hit anymore with paintballs. And but definitely I think, to just like the community can help bring paintball together, it can also hurt paintball. We definitely at a time at Pro had some teams that were not great for the community. They, a couple players that would overshoot the rental players, would boast about being the better player, but then were cheating constantly, or just playing dirty by turning up their velocity on their guns when they shouldn't be. So that can really hurt, and that can deter people from wanting to come, right?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
So I think that was another big draw into it, right? That caused the numbers to dwindle so much. And every field is going to have their different averages, right? Just based on the area that you're in and the demographic that's around that area and what
Of
they can
course.
afford.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
Well, Gabe, I would have to agree with Gabe. From this at the time for me when I started playing there to now, it's just like you're lucky to get like 20 people out. But I also think the price difference of what it was, I think that's a big factor too, is pricing, and also the people that would overshoot the people that had more experience, right? Would overshoot and turn their BPS up from it's supposed to be 10 to 15. You know what I mean? And they're shooting machine guns, and then people with Titmans are like, like I have no chance against them. I think that kind of played a big part, and especially for me being a guy that was more into the speedball. Like when I do open play, I most definitely would try to play with a mechanical gun, or try to kind of equal up with them and not really play, like how I do in a tournament, right? Against people that are equivalent skill level to me. Yeah, I mean, I hear stories all the time from guys at Minnesota Pro, like, hey man, there was 250 guys and blah blah. I'm just like, wow. I've never seen an open play that big.
Yeah.
And I think Minnesota Pro, they had a big game, Talent for Children's, and I attended the very last one that they ever hosted. And that was a lot of people. That was a fun time for me because I was like right when I was getting into it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of deters, and hopefully more of us will be able to bring that back by just having that positive community show that, hey, like you have room to improve, and you could be as competitive as you want, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we're all human, and you either love the sport or don't.
Right. I think with the money factor too, it does help that, like, out at Tommy Guns, if you stay and you help clean up the field, he's gonna give you a discount, which is huge, which isn't so much portrayed out there. I feel like not a lot of people know about that, but that's huge. That's also helpful on both parties. And then out at Annandale, they got their season pass, which gives you a discount on the things that you buy, which is huge. Anything. I mean, you get free entry, and then you get a discount on anything that you buy. I think those things need to be out there more. I think they need to be explained more so people understand that, like, if I really want to get into this scene, here's what I can do. Here's what the field offers for me to be more money efficient.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's good, and I can agree with that.
what are your guys' feelings on the ICCPL? That was a tournament series that's been around now for a couple years, and it's been introduced under NXL's wing now, to try to bridge the gap between the rental players and the X-Ball. like in the competitive scene.
So
How do you guys feel about that? I don't know if you know, like, you guys know what ICCPL is, and how do you feel about it?
I believe I know what it is. It's 10-man format mech, and it's like hyperball, woods ball mix.
Yeah.
I think it's a great introduction to folks who are not familiar with paintball, and watching that. You can definitely see that there is a platform for that. At the same time, I think it's also a struggle because how are you gonna, like, if you're gonna really grow that part of the sport, you're gonna have to expand a lot of the camera angles, and people are just gonna get lost. Especially if you're gonna like stream the events, people are gonna get lost in what's going on. There's too much going on for people to really keep their attention focused in on what's going on. So I think it's a great way to get people playing the sport, but for watching, I think it's there's a little too much going on. But like I said, I think it's great just for the sake of playing.
I agree up to the point of, if it's a beginner level thing and it's kind of introduces rec ball with speedball, I think it kind of just really defeats the purpose of people getting into speedball. Because most people, I feel like when they think of paintball, they think of woods ball. And then they watch this, kind of what they think professional play is. And then it just kind of, leads them in a different direction of what they really think professional paintball is. It might bring more people in for sure, but I think it might steer people in the wrong direction.
Sure. So I guess then that leads to, my next question, and kind of assuming you guys' point of view, it's like, do you think that paintball is a spectator sport? Is it a spectator friendly sport, or should it remain off of TV and be a sport primarily for the players?
Oh, I think it should be on TV. I think playing paintball is a ton of fun, but watching paintball is very intense. I've watched, plenty of points of watching people, and watching people, you get a different perspective. You can't see, or the players out on the field can't see what you see. You're on the sideline. You can see a lot more than they can. And it gets really intense when you see two people on the sidelines, slowly moving up inch by inch, one after another, but they never see each other. And then all of a sudden they're at the same bunker on opposite sides and they have no idea. That's really fun to watch as a spectator.
I think going based off of that, I think paintball is a great sport to watch. At the same time, I'm not Matty Marshall is a great guy who casts paintball, but it's also on the play-by-play analysts. If you're gonna get bigger and deeper in the sport, to have someone who's gonna tell a good story and a picture, paint the picture for what people are seeing, explain what's going on. I'm not saying Matty Marshall doesn't do that. He does a really good job doing that. But I think it needs to be expanded on for people to really get engaged in what's going on, explain the rules. When people are watching football, everybody who watches football knows the rules. They know what's going on. And it's getting those same people to understand the paintball rules and what's going on, so they don't have to be, focusing on, oh, is that allowed, or what's going on and whatnot. And like I said, yeah, I just think they did a better story with the play-by-play analysts needs to be told in order for watching paintball to grow.
I agree. I also think having, two commentators is a huge thing, because not one single person can pay attention to everything on the field. Having two commentators out there that can watch the same thing or can be watching two different things, and then you have multiple conversations to be had about what's really going on.
Yeah, especially for people that don't really know what the sport is. It's like, oh, these guys are just shooting each other. So it is really important for those the people that are doing that is to explain what's going on, the thought process. It might not be exact thought process of what that individual player is going through, but they could relate to that because they've been there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like for somebody that just turns ESPN on, like, oh, look at this pro play paintball, World Cup. Like everyone's going crazy about this, but I have no idea what the hell this is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like I think paintball should be broadcasted. Especially for the people that are trying to make it known that it is a sport. It is a very competitive sport. It's you're using your mind, your body. It's very physically active, very mentally active. A lot of people that I know, that I talk to personally, that's been in the military, they kind of relate to that. You're shooting a gun, you're using your thoughts, you're OODA looping, you're trying to beat the opponent that's shooting at you. That's a real thing. That's a real skill that nobody has. Like if you see somebody that picks up a paintball gun and they go into a speedball scenario, a point, they have no idea what the hell they're doing unless
Yeah.
you actually put yourself in a position to where you're going to practice. You have somebody to teach you the fundamentals, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think, to answer Gabe's question, I think it should be aired. Where did and how did JFP originate? Like, who came up with the idea of JFP and the community that you guys brought?
Oh, yeah, that's all Keegan.
So I can't
I'm
give
not-
the name, the JFP name. That's not me. That is Josh. He created that phrase, and I basically took it. Said that we were gonna do kind of our own little line. We were gonna be like the B squad of unaffiliated. And then Josh kind of just disappeared, and he said he was gonna be our coach. And he showed up for like our first practice of the season, and then like completely ghosted us. Didn't hear from him, and then came back. Wanted to talk about getting unaffiliated back up, and he wanted to take some of the JFP guys to run unaffiliated back at EXL. And to be honest, I was like, yeah, if that's what you want to do, but you're gonna have to talk to the guys. You're basically asking the guys to play on two different teams, is JFP and unaffiliated. And there was a scuffle, and we basically disbanded from unaffiliated and just started continued the JFP. And we base our team based off of that motto: just fucking play. We don't want any drama, so we're not gonna participate in fuckery. We just want to show up and play ball. And yeah, I really want to continue pushing that forward, and that's why we kind of have this podcast, is to grow the sport, to play with people who we love to play with. Like going back to the whole brotherhood thing. Like, let's create a bigger, better community for all of us to play and to continue to grow.
Yeah,
think-
that's a perfect way to put it. When I joined on, it was mainly Trevor convincing me. It was my first year of playing paintball kind of competitively. I did only do one tournament at that time, and Trevor was talking about how you, him, and John were trying to kind of create the whole JFP scene, and I got on, and it was amazing. I mean, this team is awesome, and we've taken on a lot of players this year, a lot of, players that have played in the past and didn't play for a while and then came back, or just newer players. We created a small community within the team, and everybody on this team is amazing, awesome, super easy to get along with. We've just expanded, and we keep expanding, and
we want to expand the sport, but we also realize that we can't just take everybody. We can't just take everybody. So like we want to encourage those who have their own team, just to grow their separate team. But just know that they have a support group. We want to grow the community in order for them to continue playing the sport. And I don't want people to shy away from creating their own teams and their own lines and showing up to tournaments, because we got to help each other out. I just want to say thank you guys for jumping on. I know taking up some of your guys' time on New Year's Eve is precious, but I just want to thank you guys for jumping on and being such a help that you guys are to our community. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to give a huge thanks to you guys for taking time out of your day, especially on New Year's Eve, talking to us and doing this with us. It was a privilege having you guys on. It was amazing talking to you guys.
It's been awesome, man. And Gabe, it's my boy. And this next coming up season, I wish the best for everybody, and I hope we're all gonna do the damn thing. And thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate. I don't really got much going on this New Year's Eve, but I think this New Year's Eve, this is kind of a treat for me. Because I've never been on a podcast. I never really had a discussion like this before of like paintball, where I stand in life with paintball. Like my wife knows. You know, she knows all about it. You know what I'm saying? You
For
know,
sure,
so
for
it
sure.
feels good. It feels good to kind of start with like where I started and where I'm at now. And you know, I respect you guys. I respect all the teams out there.
Yeah.
And I most definitely love the Tommy Knockers, and we're gonna keep kicking. I hope next season's going to be good.
Hell
and
yeah.
respect you guys. And you guys need help, we got you. You're more welcome to come down our field. Likewise, we're going to be doing it more coming up there. And yeah, dude, like appreciate you guys having us on for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Of course.
Hey boys, what's the most important thing you do before you go out in the field?
You
Fucking
just
play.
fucking play.